Rumors swirl about Tae-beom, painting him as the most unmanageable person within the company. Eventually, the chairman, his own grandfather, withdraws his support and exiles him to a foreign branch. Now, word spreads that he's returned. Yoo Hye-won, an assistant manager in the business strategy department, receives unexpected news. The vice president wants to see her. Confused, she voices her doubts. A secretary prepares her with instructions on how to conduct herself before she enters the vice president's office. Inside, Ji-seok, the vice president, commends her while reviewing her documents. Though she thanks him outwardly, inwardly, she questions why someone so high-ranking would be interested in her, of all people. Ji-seok then reveals the real reason. His cousin, recently returned from the overseas branch, is now the executive director at headquarters. He confesses that his arrival has stirred up trouble. In 3 months, a major general shareholders meeting will take place, and the current president, a professional executive, is expected to retire soon. Ji-seok, next in line for the presidency, sees Tae-beom's return as a threat, possibly orchestrated to trigger a power struggle. He shares his unease, admitting he believes the current president is deliberately placing them in opposition. However, Ji-seok wants to avoid open conflict. Instead, he seeks someone he can trust, someone who can observe and report on Tae-beom's actions discreetly. That's where Yoo Hye-won comes in. He asks her to report directly to him every evening, keeping him updated on Tae-beom's activities. He justifies the request by noting that since the foundation has supported them generously, it's time to give back. As Hye-won processes this unexpected assignment, Ji-seok emphasizes that her loyalty and dedication won't go unrewarded. Before she leaves, he instructs her to visit the secretariat office to sign a confidentiality agreement. The following day, Hye-won feels overwhelmed. She can't believe her new assignment makes her something close to a corporate spy, and that her subject is none other than the general director, Tae-beom. She reflects on her insignificance in the corporate world, likening herself to a weed no one notices or values. In contrast, Tae-beom is a rolling stone, someone whose every move draws attention. When she arrives at his door and knocks, she's caught off guard. Tae-beom answers the door in just a towel, surprised to see her. He recalls the meeting being set for 3 o'clock, not 2. She apologizes, explaining she was informed otherwise. Though he doesn't recall saying 2, she immediately assumes that any future miscommunications will automatically be her fault. She admits she should have reached out to confirm the time, but he casually responds that he too was thoughtless. Internally, she also thinks his towel is a bit too short. Tae-beom offers to change and invites her inside, but she insists on waiting outside. He lets her do as she pleases. About an hour later, he calls her in. She apologizes again for the trouble. He asks if she's been waiting long, and though she denies it, she's already flustered. He gives her 30 minutes for the briefing, as he has an appointment. She finishes at 20, but he's puzzled. Did she really come all the way here just for this? She admits she will prepare better next time and complete the task more thoroughly. Then he asks if she'll be returning to his house again. Though she doesn't want to, she smiles politely and assures him that next time, she'll arrange the meeting so he can see the general director immediately. Tae-beom then opens up slightly. He confesses that while he's picked up bits of information here and there, he honestly doesn't know much. The briefing barely lasted 30 minutes, and that amuses him. He says he wasn't just sitting there to hear recycled stories. Despite him constantly cutting her off during the presentation, Hye-won doesn't complain. She simply apologizes again and promises to work harder next time. Curious now, he asks for her name and how she ended up here. She tells him she was recommended by the head of business strategy, Park Min-bok, while internally praying that he'll dismiss her soon so she can go home. Tae-beom makes a sharp remark, saying, Head Park seems to have lost his touch and no longer knows how to evaluate people. Then he tells her to return the next day at 3 o'clock. He plans to start work properly after the weekend. Just then, his phone rings. He wonders who it is, and Hye-won checks. It's someone named Kim Yang. She hands the phone to him, and he answers with an unexpectedly gentle tone. Listening to his side of the conversation, Hye-won starts to feel even more uncomfortable. From his words, it's clear that the person on the other end is a woman he's very familiar with, perhaps even intimate with. She hears him suggest that the woman come over, teasing that she'll need to sweat a bit more, and noting that they've already seen everything between them. As Hye-won silently observes, she wonders what kind of woman Kim Yang is. Could she be a confident, slender model? An idol with a radiant smile? Or maybe a poised presenter with sharp intellect? She watches the distant, powerful executive speak so sweetly on the phone and can't help but feel awkward. She begins to question her own presence in that space. If Tae-beom sees her as no more than a background weed, then what exactly is she doing here? And who on earth is Kim Yang? As the call with Kim Yang ends, Tae-beom turns his attention back to Yoon. He reminds her that their meeting is scheduled for 3 o'clock the next day, but then abruptly changes it to 10 in the morning. She agrees without complaint. Noticing something off in her voice, he questions whether she dislikes the new time, but she quickly denies it. He then suggests that they hold the briefing over the weekend instead. Though the suggestion unsettles her, he adds that if she had done the task properly the first time, there wouldn't be a need to repeat it. She forces a smile, hiding her irritation. Tae-beom instructs her to be on standby going forward, explaining that his schedule is too chaotic even for him to manage. Yoon complies and informs him that she will be heading back. But instead of letting her go, he suddenly asks where she's going and tells her to accompany him. He has something he needs to do. When she asks what that is, he casually says he just needs a driver. Moments later, he tells her to get into the car. Surprised, she hesitates. Sensing her reluctance, he sarcastically asks if she's trying to say, driving isn't part of her job. She explains that she never meant she can drive. He misinterprets this as discomfort with his presence beside her or assumes it's a complicated excuse. Left with no option, Yoon gets into the driver's seat, determined to survive this unexpected trial. She asks where he's headed, and he tells her to check the destination using the navigation system. She assures him there's no need to worry. The company has had 10 accident-free years. With that, he decides to take a short nap beside her. Not long after, Tae-beom glances over to monitor her driving and expresses his shock. Her hands tremble visibly. When he points it out, she calmly admits she has a mild tremor but insists she's okay. He then questions the credibility of the accident-free claim, and she confesses that out of those 10 years, 7 were spent holding a license without ever actually driving. Suddenly, a sharp turn or mishap causes him to shout directions at her. Flustered, she apologizes, explaining that she can't multitask well and is just as afraid of her own driving. 10 minutes into the journey, she becomes slightly more composed. Tae-beom remarks that he noticed her nervousness earlier during the briefing too and compares her trembling presence to that of a frightened chihuahua. Curious, he asks how long she's been with the company. When she answers 5 years, he calls her a little chick, though he admits that 5 years should have given her some decent experience. She tries to defend herself. He then tells her that things will become more interesting if she continues working with him. Picking up his phone, he calls Kim Yang and invites her over for dinner that evening. Yoon silently debates whether she's supposed to include that detail in her report. Just as the call ends, a motorcycle suddenly swerves in front of them. Both scream. Yoon reacts quickly to avoid an accident. Afterwards, she turns to check on him, asking if he's all right. He responds that his heart is pounding and jokingly wonders if they should head to the hospital. Then, noticing her hand still pressed against his chest, he asks how long she intends to keep it there. She pulls away immediately, rattled by the awkwardness. Deciding that she's done enough for the day, she tells him she'll take him back, but he insists on driving himself from that point. On the way, he silently replays the chaotic ride in his mind. Despite everything, he finds himself wondering if the woman behind the wheel really was Yoon. He notes to himself that she's surprisingly full of energy. Later, at his home, someone questions why he summoned them only to show up late. Tae-beom explains that he was meeting someone who recently transferred from the business strategy department to the executive office. He turns to Kim Yang and apologizes. It's revealed that Kim Yang-hoon is a lawyer from Yuseon Air. The third party asks who he met, and Tae-beom casually mentions Yoon. He remarks that she reminds him of how Ji-seok used to eat from the same pot when he was in the passenger business division. He expresses pity for Yoon, assuming she will simply do as she's told. Tae-beom, however, mutters that choosing the wrong side in a power struggle could be a crime in itself, then angrily questions how anyone dares to underestimate him like that. Kim Yang advises him not to be too sure of anything, reminding him that there's still a long road ahead. He also brings up their wager. If the assistant manager isn't sent back to her original department within 3 days, he will claim a luxury wristwatch. Tae-beom counters confidently, telling him to prepare for a year of unpaid overtime instead. Meanwhile, Yoon finally arrives at her small apartment and collapses onto the floor. Drained. Her head feels unbearably heavy. Memories of both the vice president's and Tae-beom's words swirl in her mind. Staring at her ID card, she reflects on all the effort she put in to enter a prestigious company like this. And now, because of the messy politics at play, she wonders whether it's even worth staying. But despite everything, she decides she'll endure it all, no matter how twisted things get. Word spreads that Yoo Hye-won's childhood was marked by deep abandonment. Her mother had vanished one night with a factory worker, leaving her children behind. Her father had boarded a ship and never returned. From that moment, Yoon and her older brother, 3 years her senior, drifted between relatives' homes, never truly belonging anywhere. At only 6 years old, she never dared to voice her wishes, whether it was about food or small desires. Her brother, having given up on education early on, struggled to secure consistent, healthy employment. Eventually, desperation pulled him into crime. A constant cloud of unease and inner unrest hung over Yoon for years, but a glimmer of hope appeared when, through the support of a teacher, she earned a Yuseon free flight scholarship. Determined to survive, she poured everything into her studies, treating each test and lesson like a matter of life or death. Her relentless efforts bore fruit. She entered university, graduated successfully, and finally secured a position at Yuseon Airlines headquarters. While others might see this as just another young person landing a job, for Yoon, it was a lifeline, something that sustained her through her most difficult days. Yuseon became more of a home to her than any house she ever lived in. Now, as she remembers the vice president's earlier request, she knows that rejecting the task isn't an option. She simply hopes to carry it out without complications and eventually return to a normal routine. Waking from sleep, she wonders why her past suddenly resurfaced in her dreams. Meanwhile, Tae-beom steps into a traditional building where the chairman of Yuseon Airlines, Ha Baek-seung, welcomes him. The old man invites him to eat, but Tae declines. The chairman reflects on how 5 years have flown by, recalling the day Tae left for school in his uniform, gritting his teeth like it was a final goodbye. Now Tae is back. Tae explains that he intends to carve out a place for himself at Yuseon Airlines, but the chairman dismisses that notion, reminding him this isn't some local store he can come and go from freely. Tae counters with a plan to prove his value by securing liquid assets, noting the upcoming decision on convertible bonds expected next week. The chairman tells him he'll help, but makes it clear that every opportunity has its price. He also adds that he won't attend Tae's inauguration due to a cold. Soon, the vice president joins the conversation. Observing Tae, he remarks that he looks even better than when he left Korea. Their discussion shifts to the economy. Tae notes the downturn, and the vice president admits things have been rough. Feeding and supporting employees has become increasingly difficult. Tae acknowledges his cousin's hardships, and the vice president admits the pressure of carrying everything alone. He remarks that once he officially starts managing full-time, the weight will only grow heavier. So for now, he wants to enjoy the breathing space. Then he questions the reason behind Tae's sudden return. Tae pauses, a memory flashing across his mind. Eventually, he replies that there's something he needs to do. The vice president presses further, joking about whether he met someone special. But Tae abruptly rises to leave. The vice president reminds him they'll see each other again at the executive director's inauguration. 5 years ago, Tae lost someone he cherished deeply, someone taken from him because of his grandfather's opposition. That heartbreak left him completely disillusioned, and he had no plans of ever returning. But once he discovered that Ji-seok had been behind everything, a new purpose took root. The vice president, who had once stolen the most important person from his life, now stood high above, and Tae found something he absolutely had to do. As these thoughts consume him, Yoon appears with a cheerful greeting. Her energy surprises him. She explains that the fine dust is gone, the sky is clear, and the wind is soft, her bright tone in sharp contrast to his mood. She offers to bring him coffee or a Vega sandwich with romaine lettuce, but he tells her to begin the meeting instead. She agrees without resistance. Tae looks at her and reflects. He knows she was planted by the vice president, but he can't help wondering what kind of person she must be to have caught the vice president's attention. Curious, he reaches for her personal file, ready to take a closer look. Kim Yang enters the office after knocking, asking if Tae-beom greeted his brother properly. But Tae is distracted, his mind caught up in a loop of thoughts. Details about an exceptional scholarship student, a certain university, and other related matters continue to bother him. Noticing his lack of focus, Kim approaches and questions what's on his mind. He picks up the file on the desk and reacts with surprise. Tae asks if he found something unusual. Kim, inspecting the contents, wonders how someone with such an ordinary resume managed to gain entry into the company. For someone suspected of being a spy, the resume feels far too plain. Both men agree. It seems suspicious. Just then, Yoo Hye-won steps in, carrying the documents Tae previously requested. Kim flashes her a welcoming smile and introduces himself as attorney Kim Yang-hoon. He informs her that they'll be working together from now on. Yoon introduces herself in return, and Kim is quietly surprised. She's far less aggressive than he anticipated. He offers polite words, suggesting they collaborate well and that she takes good care of executive director Ha Tae-beom and everyone else. The final part catches her attention. As she exchanges pleasantries with him, she reflects on the vagueness of the word everyone. Interrupting the conversation, the executive director tells them that's enough. He then informs Kim that an individual office has been prepared for him. Kim acknowledges it and admits he already knows where it is, but wonders aloud if it was truly necessary. Tae reminds him that his tasks involve sensitive, top-secret matters. Kim agrees and steps closer to Tae, advising him not to overwork himself just because it's his first official day as executive director. He casually reminds him to squeeze in some exercise and not to forget his watch. Tae, caught off guard, reacts with slight surprise as Kim returns to his desk. The executive director turns his focus to Yoon, watching her closely as she stands before him. She gently announces that she will leave the documents and take her leave. But Tae questions whether she's implying he should go through the entire stack on his own. He then criticizes the state of Yuseon Airlines for relying so heavily on physical paperwork. Yoon apologizes. He counters by requesting that she record the content so he can listen to it when he finds time. Yoon is stunned by the request. It feels absurd. In her mind, she imagines herself boldly refusing, telling him she already has too much work and won't do it. But in reality, she smiles and agrees, determined to finish it quickly. Tae expresses genuine surprise at her response. As she prepares to leave, she thinks through how to handle the task, concluding that if it isn't finished before the end of the day, she'll continue at home. She reaches for the door, but it doesn't open. The executive director calls her name, and as she turns, she accidentally steps on him. He reacts fast, preventing her from falling. Recovering quickly, she assures him she's fine, and in that moment recognizes the familiar woody scent that she likes. Tae quietly picks up the documents that had fallen to the floor. She apologizes for not hearing him call earlier. He tells her to focus and get her head straight. The inauguration is tomorrow. She nods, saying she understands, and he allows her to leave. Outside the executive director's office, Yoon exhales sharply, recalling the unexpected moment when he held her. Trying to refocus, she checks her phone and notices a message. Someone has pointed out that the weekend report is missing. Quickly, she logs onto her computer, compiles the necessary data, and sends the report off. Then she straightens her posture and returns to work, ready to push through the rest of the day. At home, Yoo Hye-won wipes herself dry after a bath. As she gets dressed, she wonders whether she managed to sleep for at least 2 hours, but regardless of compensation or obligations, what she really wants is more sleep. Preparing for the day, she struggles slightly while dressing and feels the tightness of her clothes. Later, she walks into the office building, trying to stay composed. A staff member calls out to her and she greets him in return. When he informs her about something work-related, she replies that she will check it later. Her reply leaves him slightly disappointed. Before she can settle, her phone rings. It's the executive director. He asks where she is, and when she responds that she's in the lobby, he tells her to come to the waiting room. She heads over immediately and greets him. He checks if everything is ready for the event, and she confirms that it is. As they begin walking toward the venue, she finds it difficult to stay alert. Sleepiness presses against her eyelids, but she holds it in. The executive director glances at her and asks if she's exhausted. She deflects, saying that she's simply excited and happy about the inauguration ceremony, perhaps a bit too nervous to rest well. Inside the hall, Yoon takes in the grand setup. She's impressed, thinking that the officer in charge must have poured real effort into the preparations. Her admiration is interrupted as Tae calls for her. Standing beside him, she thinks about how people say celebrities appear ordinary once you see them every day. But in this moment, she feels like she's mingling with royalty. Tae soon teases her, wondering if he suddenly looks cooler to her now that the occasion is upon them. He asks if it's only now dawning on her that he is the executive director of Yosemite Airlines. She reflects inwardly that she's been aware of his status every day since his return to Korea. She has never forgotten it. Tae, however, catches a tone in her response and grows suspicious. He wonders if she's trying to mock him and confronts her. She changes the subject, walking off to adjust a chair. He rushes over, surprised, and questions her action. She calmly explains herself, but he insists it's not something that needs adjusting right now. She stands her ground, confused by his abrupt reaction, and thinks it's a strange time to be getting worked up over something so trivial. As he tries to explain, she cuts him off, saying she'll just leave the chair crooked. Tae sighs in visible frustration and suddenly brings up her skirt. Caught off guard, she asks what about it. She places her hand on the fabric and is taken aback. That's when it hits her. She realizes what went wrong. Earlier, she hadn't had anything suitable to wear for the inauguration, so she placed a rushed online order. The skirt she received had no stretch, and she didn't have time to get it altered. She thought she could manage if she walked carefully, but that plan is now falling apart. She hesitates, unsure what to do next. Sensing her worry, the executive director steps closer. He quietly assures her that he'll be right behind her and she should try to stay calm. He asks if she brought any extra clothes. She replies that she didn't, but she'll figure something out on her own. Still, he suggests a solution. They could walk out together. If she stays close, he'll escort her to the entrance, remove his jacket, and let her wear it so she can leave briefly and sort out the issue. Yoon immediately imagines what others might say. Him showing up at his own inauguration without a jacket, and her wearing it. The possibility of misunderstanding is too high, so she turns down the offer. She gently points out that others might get the wrong idea. He agrees, but proceeds to remove his jacket anyway. Before she can react further, someone calls his name. She lifts her gaze and sees the vice president approaching them. The vice president approaches and questions Tae-beom about the woman beside him. Tae calmly replies that she is the managing secretary he appointed. Yoon bows politely and greets him, but Tae gently holds her up and adds a cheeky comment about their working relationship. blurring lines between day and night. The vice president's eyes widen in surprise, and though Yoon's formal posture seems routine, he imagines it like a bullet. Tae tells him to take it as a shield instead. As tension rises, Yoon begins to tremble inwardly, silently pleading for the vice president to move on and leave her be. Another person joins them, greeting the vice president. From the voice, she recognizes that it is attorney Kim. Before the vice president can respond to the situation, Tae steps in and requests Kim's jacket, claiming that Secretary Yoon said it's cold. Kim reluctantly hands it over and she receives it with a grateful bow. Tae then instructs her to go handle the issue, and she quietly exits with Kim. She manages to get changed into new pants. Walking alongside Kim, she vents about how embarrassed she felt earlier and thanks him again. Kim makes a passing comment about the executive director's taste before quickly shifting the conversation. He admits that he believed what Tae said because Yoon's face had looked pale, and he hadn't been aware of what was happening until that moment. Yoon briefly recalls how close the director had gotten during that moment, but quickly brushes the thought away. As she prepares to part ways with Kim, he suggests that no one will mind if they're a bit late, and she agrees they should return together. At the inauguration ceremony, the executive director, who also serves as head of management strategy, walks up to the podium to deliver his speech. He begins by saying how glad he is to be among the company's employees, though his heart is weighed down. He explains that both internal and external conditions are currently putting pressure on Yuseon flight. Yoon and Kim sneak in during this moment, catching part of the speech. The words hit the vice president directly, and even Kim and Yoon are caught off guard. Among the attendees, reactions stir. Some see the speech as a bold provocation. The executive director frames the company's current challenges as a result of a failed management strategy. Still, he ends on a determined note, promising that everything will be fixed moving forward. The strong statement causes a stir in the room. To some, it feels like he just declared war, placing a stone firmly on top of another that was already rolling. Yet what weighs more heavily on his mind is the absence of Chairman Ha Baek-seong, the largest shareholder. Among the executives, uncertainty spreads. They worry over which direction Yuseon should follow and wonder who between the executive director and the vice president will eventually come out on top. Meanwhile, employees quietly hope their leaders will make wise decisions. Back at the executive director's office, Kim gives his opinion. If asked to comment, he admits he only half trusts the new director, and he urges him not to overlook the chairman's absence, calling it a fatal factor. Tae silently recalls the chairman's words from their earlier conversation. There's a knock. He responds and Yoon enters, requesting a moment of his time. He tells her to go ahead, but she struggles to speak in front of Kim. Kim offers to leave, but she insists he stays. Trembling slightly, she finally thanks the executive director for saving her from the earlier crisis. He replies that it's fine and says he didn't expect her to greet him anyway. Then, somewhat unexpectedly, he adds that he's grateful he was the one who noticed the issue. Because what if it had been someone else? Everyone in the room freezes for a moment, including Tae himself, realizing how his words could sound. Kim breaks the silence, noting that his comment could easily be misunderstood. Tae quickly explains that he simply meant not many people are quick to react like him, and he urges them not to take it the wrong way. Yoon nods in understanding. He then asks whether she still has much work left. She replies that she does. Kim interjects and suggests having dinner together. Yoon agrees, but Tae reacts in confusion, questioning what Kim just said. Kim shrugs off the surprise, saying it's only fair to celebrate the inauguration. They can't simply ignore such an important day. During dinner, both Yoon and Kim seem surprised when the executive director begins eating radishes. Yoon suggests baking them for him, but Tae declines without much thought. As she observes him, he silently wonders once again if she truly is a spy planted by the vice president. Elsewhere, in the vice president's office, a man raises concern about whether Yoo Hye-won is truly capable of handling the assignment effectively. He questions what the problem is. The man implies that it might not be wise for the vice president to place too much trust in the guy he planted. He describes the guy as someone who isn't highly educated but is meticulous and strongly attached to his work. The vice president cuts in and firmly states that the guy is still the right person for the job, advising Chief Kang not to worry about it. When asked whether he thinks the executive director would ever entrust Yoon with anything sensitive, the vice president brushes it off, explaining that the reports she submits contain only surface-level information. He also mentions considering the recruitment of lawyer Kim to gather deeper insights. Back at the restaurant, while Yoon excuses herself to the restroom, Kim uses the opportunity to ask Tae whether they really must keep Yoon as his secretary. Tae remembers the vice president's earlier statement and replies that she has to remain in place. Removing her abruptly would only raise suspicion that they are aware of the vice president's strategy, so they must wait patiently until she decides to leave on her own. Kim is unconvinced that this approach will benefit them. Tae, however, refers to the proverb that says a friend can be one's greatest enemy. Not long after, Kim stands and announces that he has urgent matters to attend to. He leaves a message of apology for Yoon, but Tae bluntly tells him to leave. As Kim heads out, he reflects on how long he's known Tae and how little actually escapes him. Still, some of Tae's recent remarks continue to echo in his thoughts. Meanwhile, Yoon returns from the restroom, slightly tipsy and surprised that Kim is no longer there. Tae informs her about Kim's departure and casually asks whether she feels uncomfortable being alone with him. She admits that she does, but quickly adds that it's only natural for subordinates to feel that way around their superiors. Though she mentions that the vice president is technically her direct boss, Tae expresses a wish that she could feel more at ease. He explains that he prefers working relationships that are horizontal rather than vertical. Still analyzing her, he concludes that the first step in getting to know her is to break boundaries. He offers her the opportunity to ask anything she wants. She takes the chance and inquires about Kim. He is caught off guard, wondering why she's suddenly interested in the topic. She reminds him that he was the one who brought up the idea of asking questions freely. Tae tries not to let her innocent face distract him, but he eventually answers, describing Kim as a lifelong companion. She playfully imagines the two of them together and throws out a question about whether they're planning to get married. Her words cause immediate frustration, and he concludes inwardly that she is less a spy and more of a chaotic presence. A bomb. Although Yoon misinterprets what he meant by that, he clarifies that the marriage idea is off the table entirely. Curious again, she asks about his family situation since he lives alone. Tae wants to know why she's suddenly curious. She explains that she simply noticed his family's absence at such a major grand ceremony and thought he might have felt disappointed. Tae admits that it stirred more emotion than he expected, but the truth is that his relationship with his family isn't great. Yoon quickly apologizes, feeling she may have overstepped. He reassures her that it's nothing out of the ordinary and that there's no need for guilt. To shift the mood, she suggests ending the meal with a toast. He urges her to stop drinking, warning that if she becomes drunk, no one will be able to look after her. Yoon brushes off his concern and takes another sip while congratulating him again on his inauguration. Moments later, Tae rises to leave and tells her to get up as well, but she continues speaking, her words starting to slur slightly. Noting her state, he realizes she's definitely drunk and decides to escort her home in a taxi. Despite his efforts, she continues acting up. Tae finds himself in a difficult position when he realizes he can't take Yoon to a hotel, and bringing her to his house is out of the question. Taking her to the police station might create unnecessary complications, so he decides to take her to the office. As he prepares to step out of the room, Yoon mumbles that she is cold. In response, he gently covers her with some documents to keep her warm before leaving quietly. Left alone, Tae reflects on the questions she asked earlier during dinner, especially the one about marriage. He wonders why she brought up such a personal subject. Yoon, in her half-conscious state, doesn't remember everything she said, but she recalls that it was the first time she ever felt a strange sympathy toward the executive director. She has no idea what kind of story or conflict he's carrying, but something about him makes her feel genuinely sorry. By morning, Tae wakes her. She stirs with discomfort, her back aching. Recognizing the suit jacket she slept under, she looks up just in time to see him enter. Surprised, she immediately hands him the jacket. Tae teases her about finally waking up and questions who should handle the mess she left behind. Embarrassed, she apologizes and explains that she was unconscious. He admits that he's been trying to figure out how to process what happened. Yoon expresses how sorry she is, acknowledging that she chose to drink on her own. Tae then reveals that 4 security officers helped carry her in the previous night, along with several regular employees who witnessed it all. He sarcastically notes that his already damaged image continues to plummet in real time, all thanks to someone. He questions whether it's just his feeling, though it clearly isn't. Yoon apologizes sincerely and vows never to let anything like that happen again. Tae makes it clear that if it does, she likely won't be working on the office floor any longer. He changes the topic, informing her about the morning meeting scheduled for 10 o'clock and advises her to go home and prepare, as there's still time. Inside her office, she takes a moment to process everything. She decides she will drop the suit jacket off at the dry cleaner on her way home, wanting to return it properly. As she thinks of it, the scent that calmed her last night returns to her mind. It smelled faintly of wood. Later that morning, before leaving for work, Yoon grabs a cup of coffee. She wonders if the director is feeling all right. She picks up another drink without much thought, only to realize she's bought something else too. Then it dawns on her. She probably chose it because she figured he might have a hangover. Just then, someone calls her. It's her mentor and senior from the management strategy department. During their conversation, he mentions that things became easier after she left the department. He jokes that if he had known she would transfer out so quickly, he might have treated her better. But Yoon tells him he treated her well enough, and if not for his support, she might have quit much earlier. He asks about her new department, and she admits that she's been causing trouble here and there. When he tries to find out more, she offers him the milk chocolate she's holding. He suspects it was meant for someone else, but she explains it came from a buy one, get one free offer. He accepts it and suggests that they have lunch together. Their conversation is interrupted by the executive director. Yoon instantly wonders how long he's been there. Tae asks about the meeting preparation, and she replies that it will begin as soon as she gets upstairs. However, he informs her that the meeting has been postponed due to something more urgent. Yoon nods in understanding and requests to know what the matter is. Tae glances at the man beside her, who is still patiently waiting. Then he directs her to follow him upstairs so he can explain further. She accepts. The other man, realizing he missed his chance to greet Tae, quickly apologizes, introduces himself as Kimx from the Management Strategy Department, and offers the chocolate he's holding. Tae doesn't insist, but accepts it with a smile and a polite thanks. Then he makes it clear that Yoon is coming with him. Inside the elevator, she tries to understand what's going on so suddenly. Tae informs her that they're heading directly to Gimhai Airport. She admits that she didn't bring anything for a business trip, but he tells her to stay alert because unexpected travel will become part of her job. She accepts his words, taking note. As they ride together, she observes that he's drinking what she brought earlier. She quietly recalls how he looked after her the previous night and reflects on the strange conversation he just had with Kim X. Their eyes meet sideways, both quietly wondering about each other. The sudden trip to Gimhai stems from the strong protest of a passenger who had temporarily transited through the airport. Inside the Gimhai Airlines conference hall, Executive Director Tae reads over the reports explaining the issue. A flight from Heathrow in the UK to Incheon had been cancelled due to severe weather. Passengers were rerouted via Guam to Gimhai, but the replacement aircraft's control device also malfunctioned, leading to an additional 6-hour delay. While most of the passengers accepted the compensation plan and moved on, one passenger refused and escalated the situation to this point. Tae listens carefully as the staff outline the situation. He asks about the protesting passengers' demands and how much financial loss it entails. The team explains that the compensation could reach up to 16 billion, though the likelihood of actually losing the case remains slim. Observing everything, Yoon quietly acknowledges how serious the situation is. She concludes that someone like Attorney Kim would be much more useful here than herself. Just then, a woman approaches her, confirming whether she is from the headquarters and accompanying the executive director. After Yoon confirms, the woman presses her to go to the customer service center in place of the director, insisting that it would be inappropriate for someone of Tae's status to appear directly. Yoon responds that it's part of her role to always support the executive director from close by. Considering the possible outcomes and weighing her options, she decides to comply and heads to the chaotic customer service center. The place is a mess. One furious passenger is aggressively demanding to see the person in charge. Yoon introduces herself, but the woman is not satisfied. As Yoon tries to calm the situation, the woman lashes out, verbally and physically, targeting Yoon with harsh words and even grabbing her. She scoffs at how the company is using Yoon as cannon fodder, but Yoon braces herself. She reminds herself that a bullet shield must endure, even when the impact hurts. The woman continues to berate her, complaining that Yoon's lack of vocal reaction means she's not taking the situation seriously. Despite apologizing, Yoon only fuels her anger. Just as things reach their boiling point, Tae enters. The moment the woman sees him, she stops and calls his name. Calmly but firmly, he tells Yoon to step back. Yoon feels like she has been rescued, but it also pains her to realize that her back hurts. The woman introduces herself as CEO Lee, a trading business owner, and openly remarks that Tae looks more attractive in person. Still, she gets to the point and asks how the matter will be handled. Tae apologizes for the inconvenience and damage caused. He asks if she has retained a lawyer. She seems caught off guard. He brings up Park Moon-hyun as a possible contact, but she insists she hasn't taken legal action yet. The woman grows suspicious, asking if he's trying to perform a background check on her. Tae clarifies that he only wanted to assist. When she challenges him to take it to court, claiming she didn't break any agreement, Tae states that she cannot deny what occurred. He was ready to let it go, but now it must be dealt with. He reveals that CCTV footage from the scene is intact and was repaired that very morning. CEO Lee reacts in disbelief, having assumed the cameras weren't working. She tries to explain herself, but Tae doesn't waver. He reminds her that she grabbed an employee by the hair, something that can't be taken lightly. Though she apologizes, he emphasizes that they'll proceed with an investigation and document the extent of the harm done. Flustered, she storms out, yelling at an employee on her way. One of the airline staff members quietly remarks that it's unheard of for the company to sue a passenger. Tae responds that it would be deceitful not to protect their employees. He argues that when a company prioritizes its image over its staff, loyalty will crumble. He notes that the vice president won't be pleased about the direction they're taking. Still, he instructs that employees involved in this meeting should begin leaving work one by one. In addition, they'll immediately initiate compensation and psychological relief measures depending on the severity of each individual's stress. Later, Yoon works on compiling Tae's record for the vice president. Once she finishes, she groans about the headache building behind her eyes. She quietly scolds herself for acting foolish earlier. Her mind drifts back to the woman who called her poison, a word that stings deeply. The nickname reminds her of a time in her past. Years ago, in school, when someone spread lies about her. She had no space to defend herself and no voice to express her frustrations. The nickname poisonous had stuck, like an invisible tattoo branded onto her. A knock at the door pulls her from those thoughts. When she opens it, she finds the executive director standing there. Before she can ask why he came, he stumbles toward her, clearly drunk. She catches the scent of alcohol and tries to steady him. Gently, she helps him onto the bed. As he lies there, Tae mumbles questions about why she did what she did earlier. Yoon doesn't fully understand his words, but she listens anyway. She sits beside him quietly, thinking about how naturally she's developed the ability to endure. Whether it's pressure, insults, or discomfort, she knows how to hold herself together. To outsiders, it might seem like she's submissive or overly accommodating, but in truth, it's a survival strategy. One that's shaped her entire life. Earlier, the managing director had handed Yoon the key, allowing her to enter the hotel first. As she walks around the large space, she reflects on the description given to her, wondering where her assigned room is located. Unsure, she decides to go back to the lobby to ask for clarification. Speaking to the receptionist, she learns that no room has been confirmed under her name. Trying to sort it out, she attempts to book a room on her own, but realizes she doesn't have her phone or a credit card. She pleads with the staff to allow her check-in with the promise of settling everything the next morning, but the lady refuses, insisting that the process can't continue without a phone. Left with no choice, Yoon lies down on the couch in the lobby. Elsewhere, Director Tae stirs from a troubling dream. He imagines Yoon apologizing for being unable to follow through with something he asked, mentioning the cold. Startled awake, he questions why he had such a strange dream and how he even ended up in his room. He recalls that it began with a simple suggestion for a light dinner after the staff interviews, but somehow spiraled into misunderstanding. Now determined to apologize properly, he checks the time and figures Yoon must still be asleep. Finding her phone with him, he decides to hand it over when they meet and goes out for a workout. While on his way, an employee approaches to explain the error in Yoon's reservation. The man apologizes, explaining that a female customer assumed to be Yoon is asleep on the lobby couch. Tae expresses disbelief and rushes toward the lobby, mentally recalling the dream again. He looks around, frustrated that she had to sleep there. Pulling out her phone, he notices a scheduled task involving final confirmation of a report shipment and size. Just then, Yoon spots him and runs over. As she explains the misunderstanding at the hotel, he silently hands her the phone and walks off without responding despite her calling out to him. Later, the meeting on customer compensation concludes. Tae advises the team to consult attorney Kim Yang-hoon for any legal clarification. As the team transitions to another issue, a man notes the vice president's dissatisfaction with the lawsuit filed against a passenger, Jang Bong-nam. Tae walks away while the man remains uncomfortable, caught between opposing directives from the vice president and the managing director. That evening, the teams gather for dinner. Lee Hyun-tak from finance comments on how enjoyable the previous day was, asking to be poured another drink. Tae complies and thanks him for his efforts. Observing quietly, Yoon notes that Tae might be drinking even more than at their last gathering. As she eats, a man engages her in conversation, saying the director seems completely different from the intimidating reputation he had heard about, kind and generous instead. Yoon mentally reflects that people shouldn't be judged by their appearance. The man continues, saying he's curious how she frequently enters the director's office, and though she doesn't explain, she notes to herself that it was the vice president who placed her there. When asked again, she simply states she's enjoying the food since it's free. Meanwhile, someone seated close to Tae warns him that opposing the vice president might not end well. Yoon, seated nearby, hears this and questions the meaning behind the remark. The man beside her explains that he doesn't want her to lose her job due to office politics. Though she assures him otherwise, she reflects with some regret. He presses further, asking if she's pretending not to notice the rumors surrounding her, but she listens in silence before eventually warning him, suspecting he's drunk. While the group continues enjoying their meal, Yoon glances toward Tae, who appears lost in thought. She realizes he hasn't said a single word to her today, not even the usual sarcastic remarks or unreasonable commands. Rather than feeling relieved, she finds the change unsettling. Though she is aware of her secret role, she cannot take comfort in this moment of silence. Leaving the table, she heads for the restroom, but as she opens the door to leave, she finds the managing director heading toward her. When they meet at the doorway, she bows and addresses him, and he immediately questions what she is doing there. Confused, she doesn't respond clearly. He stays silent for a while, then mutters an apology and walks away, telling her to ignore what he just said. Meanwhile, outside the building, 2 employees are deep in discussion. One of them brings up the power struggle and wonders who will come out victorious. As they speculate, Tae draws near and overhears one of them confidently predicting that the vice president will win, reasoning that it's rare for an executive director to prevail. Tae informs them that he's leaving, catching them off guard. They quickly shift the conversation to more casual topics and suggest taking him to a relaxing spot, but he politely declines, saying he prefers to rest quietly. They bow as he walks away. Meanwhile, Yoon steps outside holding Tae's jacket. A staff member recognizes it and informs her of Tae's location before heading off. At the lobby, she approaches the desk and asks the receptionist to deliver the jacket to Tae. The receptionist encourages her to give it to him personally, saying it's more appropriate, but Yoon makes excuses. The receptionist agrees to take it, but immediately calls Yoon back to show her that the director's wallet and phone are still attached to the jacket. Realizing her plan has failed, Yoon reluctantly decides to take it to him herself rather than wait till the next day. Gathering her courage, she heads up. In his room, Tae lies on the bed, replaying memories involving Yoon. He remains convinced she is a spy sent by the vice president, but can't understand why he's unable to confront her directly. Frustrated with himself, he resolves to stop pretending and get up. At the same time, Yoon reaches his room, believing that returning the jacket will complete her mission. However, as she enters, Tae appears. Startled, she apologizes, explaining that she only came to return his belongings. Her unease grows when he approaches her, reaching for her head. Though she flinches, thinking he's about to hit her, he merely touches her hair and asks about her sickness the previous day. He confirms to her that he knows she was planted by Ji-seok. Though he once thought of her as harmless and naive, he now finds himself tangled in confusing emotions. Noticing her silence, he points out how differently she behaves around him compared to others like Kim X or the staff. Despite being aware of her deceit, he confesses inwardly that he wants to act like he doesn't know, just to keep her close. Stepping in even closer, he stares at her and admits to himself that he's in serious trouble because of her, uncertain about what to do with these unfamiliar feelings. Time passes and the business trip concludes, leaving behind a mix of unresolved tensions and emotional weight. Back at the office, Tae enters Kim Yang-hoon's room and finds him napping. Tae jokes about Kim waiting for him patiently, but Kim shoots back that he's been busy dealing with the aftermath of Tae's chaos. Kim sarcastically points out how enormous the problem with Jang Bong-nam's legal team was, and urges Tae to treat his staff better. He also reveals that Ji-seok tried to lure him away while Tae was gone, then asks whether Tae thinks he is that easy to sway. Moving on, Kim suggests that they hire an additional secretary, stating that he needs support. Tae argues that Kim already works like 100 people, but Kim pushes back, saying he'd rather work like one person properly than be overloaded. Tae reminds him of the salary and benefits they agreed on, but Kim insists and finally says he'll pick the new candidate himself. Tae allows him to do things his own way. Shortly after, Yoon enters and greets both men, bowing. Kim watches her interactions carefully before asking about her head injury. She admits it still hurts. Kim expresses concern, revealing that watching the video of the assault affected him. He asks her to show where it hurts, and she gently points to the sore spots. He regrets not being there for her, believing he could have prevented it if he had accompanied them. Yoon apologizes for making him wait. Tae interrupts the moment, suggesting that they start the scheduled meeting since time is short. Yoon agrees and prepares to step out. As she moves, Tae casually brings up his jacket. She recalls it and tells him that she dropped it off at the dry cleaners and will return it the next day. However, he insists that he needs it today. She's puzzled by the urgency, but Tae, seeing no issue, announces that they'll go together after work to retrieve it. She agrees. Later that evening, they inform Kim they are heading out. Left alone, Kim reflects on the vice president's earlier words about his role under Tae, suggesting that continuing to support him is futile. The vice president implied that Tae could never become CEO and pointed to his father as proof. Kim, though frustrated, still believes the future is uncertain and not set in stone. He muses about the ongoing power struggle. While the enemy side has sent spies and are putting in full effort, Tae seems distracted, tangled in emotions. Kim shakes his head, noting that Tae is wasting valuable time on love. Elsewhere, Tae notices Yoon lost in thought again and prompts her, saying it's time they head up. Deep in thought, Yoon reflects on the person who seems to matter so much to the managing director. But she quickly dismisses the thought, reminding herself that she's not going to be his fiancé, so there's no need to dwell on it. Tae, noticing her silence, finally speaks up and asks if she has an appointment. She replies affirmatively, and they both get out of the car. She then makes a call to the laundry, but the person on the other end explains that they're not available and suggests delivering the item to her home later. The delivery would take about 1 or 2 hours. After ending the call, she tries to stay calm and searches for a nearby cafe. She doesn't notice when Tae quietly approaches and calls her name. Startled, she turns to him. Curious, he asks how far her house is from their current location, then casually requests a glass of water, pointing out that it's only 10 minutes away by car. She offers to find a cafe, but he informs her that the one nearby is closed. He had already checked while she was on the phone. Yoon suggests getting bottled water from a convenience store, but Tae questions if she expects him to wait in the street for 2 hours. She proposes waiting in the car instead, but he remarks on the awkwardness of two adults being in such a closed space for that long. Eventually, she hesitantly invites him to her house, admitting it's small but still an honor to have him visit. At her place, Tae thanks her for the water and she brings up their earlier plan to go to the restaurant. He replies that they missed the laundry owner in the process. She wonders whether the jacket is truly that important. Nevertheless, he suggests ordering food instead. His comment surprises her, since she always imagined him as someone who eats upscale meals like steak daily. She places an order and informs him it will arrive in about 40 minutes. Noticing his gaze, she wonders why he's staring so intently. When asked what's on her mind, she casually brushes it off and mentions the lemon water she's drinking. Then, Tae brings up what happened in Gimhai. He explains that being drunk can lead to misinterpretations, so he wants to make things clear. She replies that she's willing to overlook it, but he insists on clarifying. He admits that he's still sorting out his feelings, but even if his words fall short, she should try to understand. He confesses that he's not someone who easily expresses emotions, but lately he's begun to develop personal feelings for her. Yoon asks how long it has been like that. He responds that he doesn't know exactly, but finds his attention repeatedly drawn to her. Her presence started to irritate him, then became distracting. Embarrassed, he quickly invites her to ask questions if she has any. She brings up Kim Yang, which annoys him since he had just confessed his feelings. She clarifies that she's referring to the comment he once made about Kim being his life partner. Curious, she tries to understand what kind of relationship they share, admitting that she doesn't want to become someone like Miss Yoon in some imaginary love triangle. Tae, confused, checks his phone and asks if she's referring to the Kim Yang saved with a heart emoji. Yoon realizes she misunderstood. She thought Kim Yang was a woman. She confesses to having suspected something inappropriate, but quickly explains that she doesn't believe that anymore. Still, she asks why he saved the contact that way. Tae explains that he deliberately labeled Kim with a heart to keep curious women at bay and never bothered to change it afterward. He wonders why she didn't just ask him. Yoon replies that it felt too personal, but he insists that it's better to ask directly than to make wrong assumptions. She shifts the blame, saying his actions led to the misunderstanding. Trying to change the mood, she goes to get food. Meanwhile, Tae notices a notification on her phone about a report deadline, but quietly turns the screen off. When she returns with the food, he's shocked at the amount and questions her. She says it's because he's present. Taking a bite, he expresses regret and doubts whether it's even fit for human consumption, which annoys her. Still, he advises her to make sure she completes her company health checkup this year, especially an endoscopy. She replies that she already planned to do that, noting that the food is quite spicy. As he surveys the dishes and finds something that looks safe, she stops him from taking more, playfully accusing him of cheating. He points out that she's eaten a lot and asks if she can't share even a small piece of kimbap. The tension lifts as they joke about it, and Yoon secretly hopes the laundry won't deliver the jacket until the next day. After the meal, Tae expresses his appreciation, even though he mentions that the food made him feel slightly itchy. Yoon, curious, brings up the jacket he holds so dear. She wonders who gave it to him, considering how carefully he treats it. Tae explains that it was a keepsake from his mother, given before her passing. She had hoped her son would wear it when he grew up, and that memory remains with him. Hearing that, Yoon quietly apologizes, realizing the sentimental value behind the jacket. Tae assures her that it's fine, adding that he simply wanted her to see how he'd look wearing it on the day he officially receives an important appointment. Shortly after, the doorbell rings, and the jacket is finally delivered. Tae prepares to leave. As he does, he mentions that he truly enjoyed the meal and promises to treat her next time. Yoon, however, remembers that he hardly touched his food, so she sincerely thanks him instead, feeling content that she enjoyed her part of the dinner. Just as he's about to step out, Tae brings up an unexpected topic. He asks if she has any men's shoes placed at her entrance, implying that since she lives alone, it might be safer to leave a pair to deter suspicious individuals. Yoon doesn't see the point, considering she has no one to visit her. Tae remarks that even if no one comes in through the front, there are many other sneaky ways intruders might try to get in. Deep down, Yoon notes that Tae himself feels like the most dangerous presence in that space. Nevertheless, he insists she take one of his shoes and leave it by her door, before finally bidding her farewell. After he leaves, Yoon admits inwardly that life has a strange way of throwing unusual things her way, and this is just another one of those moments. Meanwhile, on his way back, Tae thinks about what Yoon might include in her report. He wonders if she'll mention that he visited her house, ate tteokbokki, collected his jacket, and even include all the little things they talked about. He knows she is working under the vice president's orders, but finds himself more curious than bothered by it. Back at her desk, Yoon finds herself struggling with the report. There's a part of her that wants to simply confess everything to the managing director, to let him know the truth and ask for his forgiveness, especially since she never intended to betray him but was forced to act under someone else's orders. On the other side, Tae suspects that the path his feelings are leading him down may eventually be a trap. But he concludes that if that happens, he'll deal with the vice president's trap head-on and crush it without hesitation. At that same moment, a man sends a text message to the vice president. The vice president receives and reads it. Almost immediately, Yoon gets a message as well, instructing her to report to the vice president's office at 7 a.m. the following morning. Enjoying this recap so far? Comment below for part 2. Until next time, ciao.